everybody, it's Sarah, and it is June, which means it's the best month of the year, minus the heat. And it's Pride Month, and I am once again finally back to being motivated to film. And this year, if I manage to keep my motivation up, you won't just get one Pride recommendations video, you'll get two. Although technically this first one is less so a Pride recommendations video and more just a bunch of books that I have on my TBR for June. Well, more or less. Basically, I picked out all the queer books that I could find that are currently on my physical TBR, which is around a third of my TBR actually. So yeah, it's not half of my TBR because the queer books tend to get read first. It's the same thing with a lot of more, you know, BIPOC authors, queer books. Those books tend to be the ones that don't stay on my TBR for so long. So my TBR usually is still overwhelmingly white and straight, but yeah. Regardless of that, I have a bunch of books that I have on my TBR that are queer, and I will pick some of the books out from these ones during the month to read. I'm just like I'm getting better, but the last few months I've just been a little bit slumpy. I haven't read a lot so far in 2026 compared to usually, and so I don't want to make a definitive TBR. So I thought I'd just share all of them, to be honest. Some of them are less likely to be picked, but some of them definitely are more likely to be picked. And because there's also been some discourse around that recently on the platform formerly known as Twitter. For me personally, if I talk about queer books, I count any books that have queer main characters slash an overwhelming majority of queer characters, generally queer normative world building, or are simply written by queer authors. All of that I would count as queer books, because there's gonna be a few authors in there that I think, you know, some of these books they wrote before they came out as queer, and so they aren't that queer in and of themselves as far as I know. However, the authors themselves are queer, as such I count them as queer books. Anyway, a lot of these books I will go through quite quickly because I actually do not know what they are about. I just picked them up. But first, let's start with the book that I am very unlikely to pick up this month. Also, if you can hear background noise, it's cars from outside because I have the windows open. Also, I don't know if you can tell that my background is slightly different. Probably not, because it's just gels, but I moved, so yeah. Anyway, first book is very unlikely that I will pick this up. It's A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. Samantha Shannon, of course, is a queer author. I believe she's lesbian, either lesbian or bisexual, and this is the prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree. I bought this on a whim because I finished my book just before a really long train journey. I didn't end up picking this up. I don't love Priory of the Orange Tree. I tend to think it is rather overrated. And so because of this, this has been on my TBR for like 4 years, 5 years, something around that time. It's one of the books that has been on my TBR for the longest. So maybe actually I should pick it up, but I kind of don't want to. But yeah, Samantha Shannon. And also on the topic of Samantha Shannon, I do also own the first book in the Bones, what's it called? I don't know. Is it the Bone Season? That series anyway, that starts with the Bone Season. So obviously Samantha Shannon, queer author, as such, this is on this list. However, I do not know what this is about. I just think it's like alternate history, historical fantasy, that type of deal. And I know that it's quite a beloved series overall. I don't think it's done yet. I think there's like 5 books, 6 books, something along those lines are out. And I think the newest book might even come out this year. I don't know, but yeah. Bone Season. So the next book is a book I'm currently reading and a book that I am so excited for. I have started it already, and it's The Eye of Leviathan by M.A. Carrick. This book comes out in July, so I guess, you know, you'll probably see it again in my recommendations video at the end of the month. You might see a few of those books again, actually, once I can tell you what they're about. This is the first book in their new duology. M.A. Carrick is an author duo made up of Alice Helms and Marie Brennan. And there's queerness represented within the authors, but also, if you know, their first trilogy as a duo is anything to go by, there will also be queer characters in there. In fact, there's already one, because there's a Fae character who's, you know, who presents male throughout the story, but is very much introduced as the reason I'm gonna present as male is because it serves me the best within this current climate that I'm intending to be in. This is historical fantasy set in Spain at the end of the 16th century, and Spain kind of, after colonizing South America, also wants to colonize the sea beyond, which is kind of the Fae realm. And so we follow a Fae changeling who wants to find a way to stop this, but also the human girl who has been put into the Fae realm, into the sea beyond, in exchange for the changeling coming to Spain. And so yeah, I'm very excited for this. I can't even tell you how far I'm in, because there's no pages, no numbers on the pages. However, I'm already enjoying it a lot. I'm about 15% into it. I would guess 4 chapters, but yeah, I'm excited, and I'm sure you'll hear me rave plenty more about this book. Next book I want to talk about is The Girl with a Thousand Faces by Sun Yudin. I have no clue what this is about. This is purely a cover buy, and also because I did quite enjoy the Book Eaters. The Book Eaters was sapphic, and I believe this one is as well. I have heard at least that it is queer. And this is also the buddy read for my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, and that book club is all about reading adult fantasy written by women and genderqueer people. And so yeah, this is the book that we chose for this month, for June, and I'm excited to see what it's about. I'm going into it completely blind, so that's all I can tell you about this. Let's go through a few read around the world books I have that I think most of these are read around the world, but they're mostly literary fiction that are queer. I actually found I believe it was a TikTok account that I don't remember the name of. I saw a few of their posts, and they were posting queer books for read around the world, and so I just wrote down a bunch of those books and ordered them. I don't know necessarily anymore what any of these are about, but all of these deal with queerness in some way. The first book I have is Cantoras by Carolina de Robertis, which is an author from Uruguay. I think the story at least is set in Uruguay. Currently she lives and works in California, and I don't know what it's about. It's about 1977, set in 1977, during the military government. I don't know a lot about Uruguayan history, so yeah, but it sounded interesting, so I picked this up. The next book I have is Call Me Esteban, which is by a Bosnian author called Leila Kalamucic, which I believe is also an openly queer author. And this one is, I think, was this the one? No, I think it's another one. I think this one is about sapphic characters. Yeah, it's about a daughter coping with losing her mother and discovering herself. So yeah, it sounds really interesting. It's a really short book, so it might actually, maybe I'll pick this as my read around the world for June. Very excited for it. It's a neat little book. So the next book I have is Lotte by Schola von Reinhold, which once again, I do not know what this is about, but it does say here in the description, a decadent celebration of portraiture, queer history, and blackness, and a bitingly funny work of fiction. So yeah, I got this from Scylla, who actually ordered it from Jacaranda Books, and they accidentally sent 2 books. But then when Scylla was like, hey, what's up with that? They said, you can just keep the 2nd copy. And she asked me if I wanted it, and obviously I said yes. So I have this now, and I'm very excited to get to it also. I'm excited to get to all of these books, almost all of these books. Then next I have Reservoir Bitches by Dalia de la Cerda, which is a Mexican author. And this is a Mexican feminist story about like all different aspects of misogyny within Mexico and like fighting that. So there's it says in here, from the all-powerful daughter of a cartel boss to the victim of trans femicide, from a house full of spinster seamstresses to a socialite who supports her politician husband by faking indigenous roots, these women spit on their own reduction and invent new ways to survive, telling their stories in bold, unapologetic voices. It just sounds really fun and interesting, and just, you know, quite serious topics, but also just like, you know, approached with, you know, kind of brutal humor. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, definitely. Also love the cover, or just like generally the vibes of this cover. So yeah, maybe I'll get to this also in June. Maybe June will be a month where I won't read as much fantasy and just read a bunch of different things. And then the last one of my Read Around the World copies is Medusa of the Roses by Navid Sinaki, which is an Iranian author. I believe, yeah, because I did read Iraq already. So it's an Iranian author, and it follows a pair of lovers, of whom one, I believe, is a trans person. And it's set, you know, I don't want to say during because it's still ongoing, but like it's set within the Iranian regime. So I'm also once again very interested in seeing where this one goes. I have just a lot of really great books, not gonna lie. Just like, it's so nice to have a bunch of books and like to go through your TBR and notice or remind yourself of what books you have and what books you were excited for a specific reason. I feel like I, you know, repeat myself a lot, and it's just a lot of, I'm so excited for all of this, but I genuinely am. So let's continue on with some more queer books where I don't know exactly how queer they are, but you know, I asked Google and Google told me stuff. I have The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams, which is the first book in the Ninth Reign series, I believe it's just called. And as far as I gathered, the main character, or one of the main characters, is a lesbian. So queer as fuck. Also, I've heard so many good things about this series. I finally need to get to it, but also I just really want to finish some more series before I start any of the ones that are on my shelf. So yeah, we'll need to see. Next, I have a book that has had some controversy surrounding its queerness. However, once again, I will say a little thing, and that is that books are queer if the author is queer and if the characters are queer. I cannot tell you, of course, right now, like if I had read any of these books, I would also, so you can make informed decisions into like, and to understand which expectations you should have going into a book. If I had read it, I would tell you, you know, how queerness is dealt with in the book and like explored also in the book. But right now, the only thing I can tell you is whether or not it's queer or not in how far it is queer, you know. Anyway, we have The Second Death of Locke by V.L. Bovalino. I have read a different book by the same author under a different pen name. I believe it's the same author under a different pen name called The Goblin Market. And that book was actually sapphic. This one is a male-female romance, however, at least the female character is bisexual. I do believe, actually, possibly both characters might be bisexual. I believe Illumicrate had this under bi for bi. But yes, because it was, you know, within the whole bunch of Lady Knights that came out, or Lady Knight books that came out in 2025, a lot of people thought this was also sapphic because there were some sapphic books like, you know, Isle in the Silver Sea, and the two of them came out around the same time. However, this one is not a sapphic pairing. It's at least a bisexual main character FMC, possibly even a main character MMC. But yeah, bisexual people are still queer. We can still talk, we can talk and discuss. Maybe I'll actually make a video on it. Tell me in the comments, what do you want me to make a video on it? We can discuss about books where, you know, a character is said to be bi and then the bisexuality isn't really explored in any way. But, you know, as I said, maybe afterwards I'm like, yeah, this ain't that queer actually. It's just mentioned in one sentence. Right now, I'm gonna put it on my TBR. Next, I have The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. This one is another one where I just asked Google if it's queer, and apparently it's at least quite a queer normative world. So we're putting it on here. However, this one I will definitely not read in June because the next book isn't gonna come out till 2027. And so I decided to read it closer to the release date. Another book I'll definitely finish before June is out, or I'll definitely try to get to, is Angels After Man by Rafael Nicolas. This is the third book in the Angels trilogy, which is a retelling, or well, each book is a retelling of a part of the Bible. The first book is a retelling of Genesis, the second book is a retelling of the Watcher's Flood, and the third book is, I assume, a retelling of the Reckoning. Who knows? I haven't gone into it that much yet because I just love the first two books. They are absolutely gorgeous. Rafael Nicolas is also a trans author, Mexican author, and you know, all of the books are queer. It's like, you can't even say, I can't even really say they're like MM or they're FF or whatever, or there's trans representation, because like all of the angels are just like so angel-y, so they don't really go by the rules of, you know, human gender. There's certain characteristics they have where, you know, certain identities might relate to specific angels more or less, but I don't really feel comfortable giving them any specific identity. It's just hella queer, and I definitely want to finish it, so I have a series checked and off of my shelf, and also because, you know, I love it. Then we have a book where I know the book itself, or where I'm fairly certain the book itself isn't that queer, however it's by a queer author, and that is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid, which is a retelling of Macbeth from Lady Macbeth's point of view. However, I've been putting this off because Scylla like really didn't like it, but I should finally get to it because this is the last unread Ava Reid book that I own. A second book that I also won't get to because it's been ages since it came out, and the third book still hasn't been announced, is Moon Witch Spider King by Marlon James, which is the second book to Black Leopard, Red Wolf. And Marlon James is a gay author from Jamaica who I believe went into exile from Jamaica because he is gay. And so, yeah, I love the first book. It's about like a bounty hunter, essentially. And the second book is pretty much the same story. Like, part of it overlaps timeline-wise with the story of the first book. However, it's told from a different perspective. So, very, very interesting. But yeah, absolutely love the first book. I'm excited for a second book, but I'm waiting for the third book to at least be announced before I get into this. Next are 2 books I got from Scylla that I borrowed from her, you know, but she didn't gift them to me. The first of these 2 is Hell's Heart by Alexis Hall, who I believe Alexis Hall is a trans author, possibly. I mean, at least non-binary. They use they, them pronouns, at least in the description in the back. And it's exactly what it says up here, Sapphic Moby Dick in space. I didn't need to know anything else. I love Moby Dick. Moby Dick, the original even, is hella gay in the subtext. And so I am so excited for this one. Scylla started gushing to me about this one recently again. And so, yeah, so I think maybe this will also be this is actually also very high on the list of books that I will actually try to get to in June. And then I also have Feast While You Can by Michaela Clements and on Julie Datta, which is a sapphic horror. In what regard it is a sapphic horror, I don't know. Do I want to know? No, I don't. So we will leave it at that. It's a sapphic horror. And then I have 2 more books here. I cannot guarantee that this is all the queer books on my shelves, because, like, for example, I also have The Devils by Joe Abercrombie on my shelves, and I don't know in how far there's queer main characters in there, because I know that at least some of his later First Law books have queer main characters. But you know, I just thought, I think 19 books is what it was right now. 19 books is enough. There's also one more in Illumicrate that I'm not quite sure, but I was like, let's leave it at that. Anyway, so the last 2 books is, first we have The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. Again, I don't know exactly how this is queer. I believe, like, Google told me the central love story or the central romance in this book, most central romance, because this is not like romantic fantasy, but like the most central pairing in this book is queer. Could have probably asked Scylla, because Scylla has read this. However, I was too lazy to wait, so I didn't. But yeah, this supposedly is queer. And then we also have To Ride a Rising Storm by Monique Blackgoose, which is the 2nd book in the Numpeshe Waysit series. And this one is a YA dragon school YA story following an indigenous main character going like to a colonizer's school because she has to, because otherwise her dragon would be taken away. And our main character is bisexual, which also already comes through quite strongly in the first book, and I believe it might even be polyamorous. I don't know, but I believe there might be some of that. And so with that, that's the queer books that I definitely know are queer are on my TBR. I am so excited for June. I'm so excited to, you know, get rid of some of these books. So with all of that, tell me in the comments down below, what are the queer books that you intend to read for June? I mean, obviously we all should, and hopefully if you watch this channel, do read queer books all throughout the year, but I still love June for just, you know, just absolutely focusing on just queer books. And so with all of that, all the links to my other social media, as well as also to all the book clubs, are linked down below. So go and check those out, and I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!